Welcome, everyone, to the Directed IRA podcast with Matt Sorensen and Mark Kohler. We are excited to be with you today, coming off of our first crypto tax summit last weekend, which I have to say Mark Kohler was amazing at.
Oh, well,
I witnessed it. I mean, I was there too. I spoke too, but Mark Kohler was amazing.
well, thanks for saying that. I appreciate it. That makes up for all of those demeaning comments you made before they turned on the camera today, which I will not repeat. But no, thank you, Matt. You're awesome. It was a great event. We had
Just so everybody knows what Mark's referring to, I did have to watch him eat shoveling Mexican food before we turned on the camera. That was a quick lunch. He ate a whole chilaquiles in like 90 seconds. It was like gone in 90 seconds.
I did not eat the whole thing. Okay. Corey said the camera's off, and so I just went for it. But apparently it wasn't. It was an embarrassing moment. But you got to eat when you can eat. So no, the crypto summit was a big, wonderful event, and the team did a great job helping pull it together. For those of you that attended or bought the virtual ticket, the recordings should be available in just the next 3 or 4 days. By the time you hear this podcast, recordings could very well be up. We're sending out emails with the links and the procedure to get that. But there was an interesting thing that happened at the lunch at the Crypto Tax Summit. Matt, please pray tell.
Yeah. So, I mean, these are all crypto investors, right, at the Crypto Tax Summit. And many of them use their self-directed IRAs to do it. They have their Roth IRAs buying crypto, their kids' Roth IRAs. And I was talking to one of these investors who's been very successful. And she said, she started asking about investing in a startup. And she had a tax question about it. And I said, and she asked her tax question. I'm like, well, why don't you just do that in a Roth IRA? You don't have to worry about the taxes. And she was like, you can do that? And I was like, yeah, you can do that. Before crypto, I mean, captured everyone's fascination. Yeah. Of course, you can invest in a startup, be an angel investor, invest in a small business down the street. I mean, these are all assets you can own with an IRA. We've been doing that for decades, actually, helping clients. And so we want to walk over that strategy today and kind of go through things you should know and what the opportunity is and things to think about as you're going through the process.
Yeah. And Matt and I have always tried to be the pioneers of doing a strategy before we help our clients do it, especially when it's on the cutting edge. Mm-hmm. So Matt could maybe talk about some of his experiences with his retirement account, but just quickly to put this in context, right next door is a hair salon. I was there right before the show. You didn't say anything, Matt, good. But I just wanted to point that out.
Looks good.
You were wondering why I look so nice today.
Dapper.
Right. Dapper. So anyway, I was right next door at the hair salon, and the hair salon changed ownership last year. And I was talking to the ladies, and they were looking for someone to buy in. And I said, I'm in. And I was going to have my Roth IRA be a partner in the hair salon next door. Not maybe a startup that's going to change the world and make billions, but it's going to do better than a little mutual fund or ETF. Then last year, also about this time of year, I started negotiating, and my HSA, health savings account, bought 5 cows, and they had baby cows called calves, and they were all bulls. I'm getting all the terms down.
That was a win. Yeah.
And then they all got pregnant this summer, as mom cows tend to do as part of a herd. It's kind of the birds and the bees story. We can touch that in a different podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I ended up selling my 5 pregnant cows and my 5 baby cows this fall for a profit in my health savings account. So that was a little startup. Of course, I named it the Kohler Dutton Livestock Company because I'm a huge fan of Kevin Costner. And then I also have a crypto mine in my Roth IRA, and I have a rental property in my Roth IRA. So I've tried to do a little of everything. Matt, what are some of the things you've invested in? We just want to open minds. So I give you guys, we're really doing this ourselves.
Yeah. Crypto, of course. Been doing crypto in my
IRA. What was Bitcoin when you bought it? This kills me.
Yeah. It was $2,500 per Bitcoin when I bought it. And you can go to YouTube and watch the video, and I'm like, and there's $25 for a Bitcoin. I'm like, should you buy it? I don't know. Sounds crazy, but if you want to, here's what I did, and I kind of went through the process. Yeah. $2,500. Of course it's now, 10, 20X that, depending on the value at the date. But, but single family rental property. That's what I like to mostly do. I'm kind of a buy and hold real estate guy, and I've been taking cash flow to buy crypto, actually. Great little 1-2 punch. But I've looked at some private.
Did you do a note at one point?
Yeah, I did a private money loan before that's been since cashed out and paid back, is secured on the real property for a rehab.
Was that for you to a future son-in-law, and then you got rid of him?
No, that was not. That was
okay,
not. That was
was
just an example I used. That was actually not what I did. But but here at Directed, one of the most common investments we process is someone investing in a private company. It's a startup raising capital. It's a small business down the street. And it's one of the most ordinary investments we do here. So I want to walk through it, make sure everybody knows about it, how you can do it, what are the things to think about. And I'll just give an example. Like these are the cool ones, like I have there's a dentist. Well, this one's not as cool, but just give an example. There's a cool one.
Oh gosh, well, you had me all excited.
Yeah.
Let me give
the
you a
dentist.
cool one.
Oh, this is going to go exciting. Okay. So we had like there's a dentist investing in like a dental device thing that would kind of like a flossing personal use device, and it's like, okay, this dentist is investing in something he heard about, knew about, has some expertise on, throwing money into that startup. We've had clients invest in just tons of different things. One that was cool though was a professional soccer team in Mexico. We had a client invest, pretty significant investment actually, to purchase. This is a world-class, professional, legit soccer team in Mexico that was owned through a Delaware corporation, actually. And he bought into the Delaware corporation. So all these are things you could do. Your IRA could own a professional team.
I've got one. I need to confirm with my director. Can I say the word sex toy and we're not going to get E-rating?
You already said it.
I'm clear for this. Okay. I just want to make sure this is legit. This is a business.
Yeah.
But I had a client that was doing a development and had patented a new sex toy. And that always sounds salacious, right? They had a partner that did it they invested with their IRA. It did involve a vacuum, but that's a whole other story.
Okay. Yeah. I don't even want to know.
Hey, we're trying to keep this show fun,
Stop there.
We'll leave it at that. But what's funny is, but seriously, we have so many calls. We're setting up this year close to 2,000 companies for clients around the country.
No, and we set really up almost 4,000 last year.
Was it 4,000?
Yes.
Maybe I was thinking 2,000 in the IRA world. And
yeah.
But anyway, it is fun to hear clients that have all these creative ideas. Sometimes and what's funny,
a horse. We had a client somebody asked a question about a client that bought a horse, that would go to like those shows where I don't even know, but they're like horse shows, not races. They're not races. Equestrian event. Let's just call it that, an equestrian event.
If you want a cowboy hat, I think you need to go more. It's a horse show.
Yeah. But you can own a horse with your IRA, we've had clients own actual shares in race horses that get, you could buy shares and we've had clients do that with their IRAs. And those are all in some ways a little business. So we want to go over that, things to know about. And I think it's a cool thing. And that's what we always come back to with IRAs is invest in what you know. So like the dentist investing in the flossing tool, okay, that's in your lane, man. You hopefully know that. You see opportunities too of where that could fit. I know real estate more than I would know a mutual fund. That's why I've bought real estate. But if you know something or you get opportunities like this client at the Crypto Tax Summit, wanting to make an angel investment because she gets those, that's her space in the tech world. Cool. You could do this with an IRA.
Yep. Okay. So we're going to go through the steps and give you some tips. I'll let Matt lay those out and he'll give me a chance to comment here and there. One thing I did want to follow up on that was that it is one last point is when it keeps our job interesting and exciting to hear all these ideas, but what's really tends to be the case, and I hate it, is clients come through, and this is over the last 20 years, and they come through and they go, we got this idea, and it's attorney-client privilege. I can't share it with anyone. I'm locked down. I can't compete. You don't have to have your lawyer sign an NDA, which we're going to come to that concept here in a moment. But your lawyer has fiduciary duty to protect you and the information you share on your business idea. So anyway, we have these ideas come through and it's fun. And what's interesting is there's always these ideas like, oh my gosh, that's the best idea. I love it. Why didn't I think of that? Like, that is the coolest idea. Makes no money.
Yeah.
And then I have these other ideas that come through and I'm like, knock yourself out. Good luck.
Yeah, that sounds like a harebrained idea.
Job.
Hey, your money,
Have fun. See you later.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they come back a year later, totally killed it, making tons of money. And I'm like, what the? So what I'm getting at is if you have a consult with me, I will help you set this up and structure it probably, but don't depend on my, 5-star or 1-star rating as to whether this is going to make money or not.
Right.
You do what you think's best,
Yeah, we're the tax and legal advice of how to do it. You got to decide whether you should. Because as we all know, there's can you do this and should you do this? Those are different.
Corey, remember that? We talked about that earlier. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah. So
young people all the time here.
But
It's in one ear and out the other.
Yeah. The other thing too we see is we've had clients invest in startups that go public. So we've had clients had to convert their shares that are private shares into public shares, which we can do that. We have a brokerage relationship. We've added onto the accounts where that's happened for clients. And of course, it's more likely the company, if it's successful, that it could be bought out and acquired. So there's lots of different ways, or it's the small business you hold in cash flow. So there's different strategies and ways to think about as people are approaching this. But let me start at step one. Okay. I want to back up. The first thing you need is a self-directed IRA. Okay?
Oh, that's a novel idea.
Yeah. So like your IRA at Fidelity, if you call them up and say, hey, I want to invest in this startup down here with my IRA, they're gonna be like, you can't do it. And that's not because IRAs can't own it. It's because IRAs at Fidelity can't. So you need to get to a provider of IRAs, a custodian, such as Directed IRA. You're listening to the Directed IRA podcast, that we can set up your account. You just transfer the funds over. If you got a traditional IRA at Fidelity, transfer over to traditional IRA here. You got a Roth IRA, transfer your Roth IRA over here to Directed. We set up the account, and now you've got an account that can own these alternative assets. Like the startup, like the small business.
And let me point out, there is no tax. There is no transfer tax. There is no penalty when you do this. And everybody, keep in mind, you are not distributing the IRA. You are not taking the IRA out. You're just transferring the custodianship or the broker or whatever term you want to use. So you're going to move who controls it. You're not taking the money out of the IRA. That's an important point. Don't get caught up in the 60-day rollover conversation. That's another day. You're just going to change the account. And when you open the account at Directed IRA, they'll help you do this. They'll go, where is it? All right, fill out this form, send it here.
And then we request the transfer from where it's at. So if it's at Fidelity, we have an account, an IRA account for here. We send it to Fidelity and say, hey, we have an IRA account for this person here. They got some money with you. Send that money over here. And you could just send a partial amount and stay in the market for what you want. And a lot of people will just come over with 50 grand. That's a very common entry-level amount for a lot of private startups in particular. Or maybe it's a small business and you need a couple $100,000 or whatever it may be. You can do a partial transfer, or you could transfer the whole account over, but you're going to indicate the dollar amount. Then it comes over here in your account.
Okay. I'm going to say that's 2 steps. Step 1, open the account.
Yeah.
Step 2, fund the account with the appropriate amount.
Yeah.
Now, before you go to step 3, can I give a caveat?
Yes.
What we're talking about today are startups or small businesses that you are not going to work in, participate. Critical. We have a different podcast on creating a business model where you're going to be a part of it, and what does your ownership have to be and control. And we call those prohibited transactions. Many of you experts that listen to our show, you know what we're talking about. For those that are new, go back and listen to our first 10 podcasts of the show when we launched it a year or 2 ago, and just catch those first 10 shows. We'll give you the basics of what those boundaries are. But that's just a side note. So Matt, we've got the account, we've transferred the money over. What do you think step 3 is?
All right. Step 3 is you need to get the documents that the company is going to use for the investment. If this is a well-done startup that they're out raising money, they're going to have an offering document and a subscription document. The offering document, sometimes it could be in a private placement, or it could be a crowdfunding offering, but it's basically a summary, and it's a bunch of legalese that says, hey, you could lose money if you put money into this thing, but we think it's going to be great. But you could lose a lot of money, but we think it'd be great. So give us some money. It's one of these like sells, but also a disclaimer type thing. And there's a subscription that's part of that too, that basically says, all right, I'm going to buy 10 shares for, $1,000 a share for $10,000. And you say, I'm going to do it with my IRA. That's important on that subscription. When you fill out the subscription, don't put Matt Sorensen's buying it. You're going to put Directed Trust Company, FBO, Matt Sorensen IRA is buying this.
Like it. Now, I think if that's step 3, I'm going to call that option 1 of step 3.
Right.
There's option 2. Some of you might be thinking of the hair salon next door, where these ladies, and men, anybody, subscription agreements and offerings are the first thing from their mind. They're lucky to have an LLC. So whatever the business size or model is, you want to request information. And so we're going to come to probably step 4, which we'll call due diligence in a moment. But just now, I want to just say, get the info first. Then you're going to do something with it. That's called due diligence. But get the docs. And so in a small business scenario, it could be a brother-in-law that's starting a restaurant. It could be a hair salon. It could be a ranch. It could be any of these little startups.
We've had a lot of clients do car washes, that can be operational businesses. Sometimes there's real estate involved. I
want to help you out. Adjust your light a little bit. For those on YouTube, your light did something where it's like gleaming off your face now. And we were trying to work on your tan. I'm going to send over some bronzer.
That's just the halo above me. Sometimes
the halo effect. Okay.
Yeah. There's a little, the angel thing, I
don't know what it is. Maybe you got too close.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Oh, when you move back, it's a little better. Okay. I'm just looking out for you on, there's a lot of comments of how good looking Matt is on YouTube. And I want to keep the level of those
I get the, that guy needs some, do you let him out during the daytime?
Yeah. He lives in Phoenix. Are you sure? Because I don't think he's seen the sun in a while. No, we are actually building out a new, just a little podcast studio right there in the Phoenix office. This should be done in the next month or so. So we're going to up the game on Matt. We're doing this all, frankly, for Matt's cosmetic challenges. Yeah. So it's going to be good. So
it'll be money well spent. I know you guys are like, guys, this is hard.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Now, due diligence step 4. What do you like to look in there? You get the documents.
Yeah.
Whatever the freak this business owner has, whether it's totally legit or just basic small business. Step 4.
Well, like any business, I want to know what the hell they're selling. What's the product? What's the service? Okay. You need to get sold on that and make sure that it's a good fit. Like, would you buy this? Would you be a customer of this business? If you were a customer of this business, like, what would you be thinking about as you walk into this business and what they're telling you?
Yeah.
So, so think about that. So you want to think about just, what does the business do? All right. The next thing that I want to look at is, who is going to do this in the business? Who are the people behind it? Because at the end of the day, you can have an amazing idea, but if the right people aren't executing it and doing it and following through on it, that amazing idea is totally worthless, right? There's way too many ideas out there of great businesses that never happen because they can't get executed right. So you want to look into who's the management people, who are the people behind this thing that say they're going to pull it off and do all the hard work, because it's hard.
And I was looking on
your
notes
about startups in particular, or even small businesses. It's hard.
Yeah, I was just looking on. I thought that was interesting that you said, look at what the product is. And this is something that Warren Buffett talks about a lot. He's like, I invest in something I like. I understand it. I get it. I use it.
Dairy Queen, auto insurance, Coca-Cola.
Yeah. And of course, Warren Buffett's had some success with that model.
Yeah.
But I was thinking of Bobby Axelrod on Billions. If you remember in the season 1, he was trying to get his guys in on it. What was it? It was a cookie, or it was like a Twinkie?
No, it was the pizza. The pizza.
No, it wasn't the pizza. Remember, it was a cookie. And he goes, does that taste like the same? Remember, he was in his kitchen and and he had that guy go buy him. And he goes, does that taste like the same thing that it used to taste like? And he goes, it doesn't, does it? He goes, when I grew up, I loved those. It was a Malabar bar or something. Remember, it was something. I know he invested in the pizza place too.
Okay.
But anyway, the thing was I thought it was interesting in Bobby Axelrod's, both of those instances, he ate what he was investing in. He actually,
right.
He's like, I like this. And I think that's a good point. Also in due diligence, especially on the small business scenario, which was option 2 of getting documents section step 3, is you're going to probably sign what's called an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. And you kind of want to expect it coming. Don't freak out. In fact, you can help the business owner if they're new to this, is say, I'll sign an NDA. You tell me, I need to know your secret sauce. I need to know your list. I need to see your financials. I need you to open your kimono. I got to see it all. And if you're not going to share that, I'm not going to invest in your business because I need to crunch the numbers. I want to see your tax returns. You want to see everything. And so you might sign this non-disclosure agreement. And I like how you said, Matt, the product. That was cool too. What else would you say in due diligence? I've got the story.
Okay, so we got the people. Would you be a customer of it? Think about it from the customer side, because someone's going to have to pay this business money that you then make money on.
Yeah.
The people behind it. Particularly on the small businesses or businesses in existence, we want to look at their financials. Even a business starting up, though, you want to know what money has already been put in this by other investors, by the founders throwing it in. Have they seeded it? Have they put a little bit of their own money at risk at least? Yeah.
Oh, Matt, I got one here. You know what's interesting? And you and I have seen this before. A lot of people, and I've got a story from this week on this, when they do due diligence, now this is deep, everybody. We tend to have clients that are looking for a reason not to invest rather than looking for the reasons to invest. Now, that may sound like a subtle distinction, but it's not. Yeah. Because people are like, oh, I'm so excited about this. I'm going to do it. I'm just looking for a reason not to. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's not how we want to approach this. I want you to be like, sell me on this. Why am I doing it? And you got to sell yourself. Don't get emotional. Freaking hey. Yeah. Really you sell yourself on the numbers. You're not buying a picket fence. You're not buying flashy packaging. You're not buying flashy storefront. You're buying numbers. They can look great, but if they're not making money, get the hell out. Yeah. Now, I will say this. Sometimes there's small businesses that are fixer-uppers in particular. And sometimes that need for that service in that community or the market it's in is big. And there could be an existing workforce there, some things you could leverage that would be faster to buy this business than to start another one from scratch. But the numbers are awful because the last person operating it sucked. And you're going to come in and invest with your IRA and get a real person in there that can run and manage this. Because remember, when your IRA is doing it, we're not talking about you going in and running that small business. We have other podcasts on that. There's other structures to think about there. I'd love this. Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought. Yeah. I was going to say, and this is, I like that perspective that you talked about of, thinking about like finding a reason to invest. With startups in particular and small businesses, you could say the same thing. There's risk to it. When we're looking at the risk spectrum here, there's a startup could be a lot more risky. Small business is probably less risky, I would say, because it's existing. You can crunch the numbers. But these brand new startups, they're risky. I would not be throwing your whole retirement account at them. I mean, we're not financial advisors, but like you should take a measured risk there, right? Especially if it's a brand new concept and something that's ever gone out. So what we've seen with successful clients is we've had a lot of clients particularly in crowdfunding. They invest in 10 different things and they just drop a little bit of money in each one. Yeah. They're not going to hit. Yeah. Because some of these can go to zero and you need to realize that, particularly in the startups, these can go entirely to zero. Contrast that with real estate, at least, which is a very popular self-directed asset. That's not going to go to zero. You could lose some money, but it's always going to have a certain amount of value. So it's less risky. But is the real estate going to go double or triple within a few years, possibly? No, it's not going to do that. Yeah. Maybe in 10 or 20 years. But the startup, on the other hand, can have exponential growth. You could get 10, 100x potentially on some of these things, the ones that hit. So know the risk tolerance and take that into account for the types of investments you're looking at. And take a measured amount of risk in what you invest in. I like that. And I was going to go back to your fixer-upper concept. Yeah. And it's funny, a lot of people are now, because of the, home or house shows and all that, and the fixer-upper shows, we get that. I'm going to buy a dilapidated house. I'm going to fix it up. I'm going to sell it. Well, businesses go through the same thing. I mean, this is what Mitt Romney did that made him millions.
Yeah.
We thought he was
With his
too rich
IRA.
yeah, with his IRA. We
Yeah,
thought he was
he's
too
the
rich for the White House, but
yeah, we should probably mention that. I mean, so this is a chapter in my book on, about investing in private companies with an IRA. Mitt Romney, when he ran for president, he had this IRA worth like 30 to 100 million. That was like the box he had to check in terms of range of retirement accounts. And people are like, how does he have such a huge retirement account? He was investing in basically startups and turnaround small businesses like Staples when it was one store, or Sealy mattress when like 1,000 people had one of those, And so they were early or in certain turnaround points of these companies that where the business was kind of a fixer upper. That's where they are investing their IRA.
Yeah. And on a micro level, that's what I was going to say about this fixer upper concept is this hair salon next door. It's your typical small town, 5 ladies, 6 ladies in their hair salon. And there's a college 2 blocks away. And I'm not kidding you. Half the time I walk by, they're just chit chatting. Chairs are open.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell's going on? And I said, if I invest, we're making some changes. Now, I'm not going to go in there with a hammer and a tool belt and this and that. But I said, you've got literally a 25,000 student population right here, 3 blocks away. And you should have a kid in that chair just lying. And I said, I want TVs everywhere. I want a paint job. I want every time someone walks in, they're going to get their favorite soda. You're going to have them on a, just 5 things and you'll be swamped. I want a couch over here playing video games and I want a pool table in the corner. You're going to be swamped. And they're like, well, we don't like that. We don't want that style. I'm like, oh, you want half your chairs empty? Knock yourself out. Mm-hmm. And so I ultimately didn't invest because they didn't want to make changes. So if you're out there, it's okay. They're fixer uppers. If they're not going to do your thing, deploy your money somewhere else.
Yep. So, yeah. See, that's the process right there. And we have separate podcasts on due diligence in general to look at. And we've even done on the Main Street Business podcast, which we should probably record a new one, Mark, on buying a business just in general. Buying a small business. We've done that a couple years back, but which I thought was a great episode, if I do say so. Yep. Okay, let's talk about the next thing I just want to mention is what type of entity is this you're buying? Is this a corporation? Like the startup that thinks it's going to go public and be the next amazing thing is typically going to be a C corporation, right? But this could be, well, what if it's the small business that's maybe an LLC? What if the small business is an S corp? Let's talk about those 3 because those are some important notes to know on all 3 of those.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and so let's say this is step 5. You do your due diligence and you're like, okay, I'm going to move forward. Now it's time to sign paperwork. And when they send it over, and you'll determine this during due diligence too, but you're going to be like, oh, you're an S corporation. My IRA cannot invest in an S corporation. Also, if it's an operational business, you're going to have what's called UBIT tax. It's kind of a leveling the playing.
So let's break right there. Because if it's an S corp, and then your due diligence, you're going to get the company documents typically. So you'll know, oh, this is an S corp. IRAs just don't qualify as an S corp shareholder. So they basically can't own it. It's just it's a no-go, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But let's say they're the LLC, which is what Mark's talking about here.
Whoa. No. On the S corp, if it's a no-go, you say, as it stands, it's a no-go.
True.
You need to create an LLC, let your S corp take part ownership, and my IRA will come in as a part owner. We call that a simple reorganization. It may only be 1,000 or so in legal fees. And so don't think you have to walk away. So I don't want to send that message, Matt. So if someone is an S corp, there's a workaround. Okay.
Or if you were buying the business out entirely, you could just buy the assets of the S corp, reorg into an LLC. Okay. Yeah. Now you were going to talk about operational because this is a key part here.
Well, you went to LLC. And I think you're going to say if it's an LLC, easier.
Yeah. If it's an LLC, we need to know if it's an operational business, meaning is it selling goods and services, which is a lot of these, that's what it is. And if it's doing that, you need to look at it an important perspective. If your goal in this investment is to buy and hold it forever, you need to know about a tax called UBIT, unrelated business income tax. We have prior podcasts on this too. It's a whole chapter in my book, Self-Directed IRA Handbook. But what UBIT is a tax that applies to profits on your IRA. So when you own an LLC, that the LLC is a pass-through entity, it does not pay any tax at the company level. It passes down its profits to the owners. Well, when IRAs get profits from an LLC, this is business income. There's tax that applies to IRAs. And in general, people think, but Matt, IRAs don't pay taxes when they're making money. Yes, if it's investment income, but ordinary income, selling goods and services out of an LLC, passing down to an IRA that's a member, is business income, causing unrelated business income tax.
Okay. Love it.
Now, I've had clients that say, okay, Matt, I'm investing in this startup or this new business actually, or small business, but my intent is to sell the business or the shares. I'm not sitting around to cash flow. And in fact, I had one client where we went through this analysis and he said, you know what? I don't care if there's UBIT. Frankly, this company's not making profit. It was a startup that was an app. And he's like, this company's not going to make money before it sells. It's just trying to get 1 million users of its app, and it's going to go sell for hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm just going to get capital gain on the sale of my units in the LLC. I don't care about UBIT. And so you could look at it that way. Even if it's an LLC that's an operating business, if the goal is to really just sell it for profit rather than cash flow the profits out of the business, UBIT may not be a big detractor.
Yeah. So that's step 5. I'm just trying to think of.
Well, I was gonna say C Corps. If it's the C Corps, don't worry about UBIT.
Yeah.
Because they're exempt. So if you're investing in the startups that are the C Corps and all that, they're exempt from UBIT because they pay corporate tax on their profits. So it creates an exemption for IRAs, no UBIT.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of what some of you listeners might be thinking or want to ask. And so I'm going to say this is that if this part got really confusing and you're like, oh my gosh, it's not worth it. Please, it is not that difficult. Now, your normal family law attorney or, accountant that does your 1040 for your kids for the last 50 years, it would blow their brains. But we've got a team of lawyers, a team of accountants here. We're doing these deals every day. And to put your IRA into one of these startups or small businesses, a couple grand, maybe. Now, you might need more time with due diligence. You might want more advice. You might need some structuring of your trifecta. There's some ancillary issues, but just in a vacuum, it's the last time I'll bring up that word.
Yeah.
In a vacuum, you might just.
I was waiting. Was there a payoff there? You like,
I know
earlier and you came back to it.
The good comedians, they have a payoff there, but not me. I don't know what you're thinking about, but I'm more appropriate and careful about what I say. But anyway, but if you're thinking in a vacuum of like, what is this going to be expensive to do? It's not. Just call up the law firm, go, hey, I really want to do this investment. My so-and-so friend or whatever, I've got this offering. I've got this idea. I want to do it in my IRA. You get an hour consultation and just say, hey, I'm looking at doing this. Can one of your lawyers look over it, tell me what I'm missing and how it needs to be structured? It could evolve into maybe a little bit of restructuring or a workaround, but it really could just be, oh, that's all I do. Yep. That's all you do. Just boom, boom, boom. Yeah. So I guess step 5 or 6 would be making the actual transfer of money. You're not going to take the money out of your IRA. You'll call directed IRA and go, okay, I signed all the documents, and you're going to go online and the team will tell you what to sign based on the type of structure it is. There's going to be different documents used. They're all downloadable right on the website, and you fill them out. And then that's where you authorize directed IRA to do the investment on your behalf.
You'll be like, here's the subscription documents, or here's the purchase of the business documents. And it's in your IRA as the buyer, right? Or investor here. And then you're going to authorize us, what we call a direction of investment. That's an e-sign form on our site to say, okay, here's the documents. Here's what I'm buying. Wire the money here. And then that's your authorization. We send the money, and then your IRA is going to own this thing. And of course, down the road, you're hoping there's going to be some cash flow on this, going to build up the cash in the account if the business is making profits, or you're going to sell it for a profit. And then that gain goes back into your IRA, builds it up, of course, coming out tax-free in your Roth or tax deferred in your traditional IRA.
Well, now what step is walking or riding off into the sunset a billionaire? Is that step 7?
Yeah, you sell the business. You get all this huge retirement account, you retire, and then all of a sudden you end up in a tub in the middle of a meadow with your soulmate next to you.
Holding hands in your little claw porcelain tubs.
I think that's let's just call that a Mel Health commercial. I don't know what that product was selling, but
now what we don't want you to envision is a Thelma and Louise scenario where you're riding off, not into the sunset, but towards the Grand Canyon. And just, we don't want that. And I like what Matt said too, take measured risk in all of this. And I'm going to finish with this. Here's my last point of this week. A story occurred this week. I mentioned it earlier. It was actually an employee of ours in our firm. He called up and he was like, "Hey, Mark, I'm looking at buying this business." And we love it when our employees are doing little side businesses and side hustles. It's a huge part of our culture. We really want, it's over 40% of Americans now have a second source of income, a side hustle. And that's a small business. What are we doing about it? And so we're grateful for many of you listening. If you're not listening to our sister podcast, the Main Street Business Podcast, please do. You would love it. So he calls up and he's like, I'm going to do this small business. And I go, "How are you on due diligence? Have you crunched all the numbers yet? Have you got the financials? Have you got this?" He wanted to jump straight to step 5 and 6. Like, what do I sign? Where do I do it? How do I do it? I'm like, whoa. I'm not going to tell you. I want you to go back and do these other steps. And I'll help you on those, but you've got to go through that process. And he's like, you're right. He's been a little cagey. He hasn't given me everything I've wanted. And he's a smart guy. But all of us, we get emotional. We get excited. We're like, oh my gosh, this could be the next best thing to sliced bread, or it's going to make millions, or I'm going to have discretionary income that I've never had before. Oh my gosh, this is it. And we get excited and we take our eye off the ball. This is the red dress in the Matrix. We turn around and look at the red dress, boom. We got a 9mm in our face, so we've got to have a reality check and go, we got to go through the due diligence phase. He called me 3 days later and he goes, "Mark, thanks so much." He goes, "Didn't get the documents I wanted. He wasn't forthcoming. I had a bad feeling. I got out." And I was like, freaking awesome. And I go, "But don't stop looking. The right deal will come." And and that on that final note is he said, he didn't say this, but what I want to point out is it's got to feel good in your mind. And it's got to sound right or be right in your mind and feel good in your heart. Make sure those are in alignment. Some people are like, "Oh, it feels so good." Can you make sense of it? No, but it feels good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not the reason to pull the trigger.
I can't tell you how many times I've been on a phone with a client. This is back, consulting as a lawyer on due diligence on something. And the client's like, they're like so excited about this. And like, I can invest this and then I get to make this. And I'm like, okay, what do they do? Well, I don't know. I'm like, how do they make money? I'm like, do they sell something? Yeah. Like what? And it's like, they can't explain it. I'm like, why are you investing in this? Like, how do you know these people? If you can't understand it, that's one of my first rules of due diligence. And again, we have a prior due diligence podcast on this, but that's my first rule of due diligence. If you don't understand, don't invest.
Yeah.
Invest in what you know. That's what self-directing, why people are successful. They invest in what they know. Yeah. So
I've been going through this myself, trying to understand the metaverse and and meta ventures is what they called. Businesses in the metaverse are called meta ventures. And the techie crowd, they know how they're making money, but having them put it in plain English and being able to put it in a document and transact and account for it can be challenging. And so that's a new frontier and it's exciting. But well, Matt.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for being here for another amazing episode of the Directed IRA podcast. Thanks, Mark Kohler. Appreciate all those amazing insights today. And we'll be back next week. I think we may be doing open forum next week.
Yeah, let's do it. Open forum.
Here and on our Main Street Business Podcast. Go to directedira.com/podcast. You can submit your questions there. And that episode is all for you and your guys' questions. We'll cover anything in the retirement space, self-directed, all your retirement plan questions. We'll do our best to field them next week on open forum. Till then, stay calm and self-direct on.
Ooh, that sounded great. Is that the soup of the day? I'll have that.